Okay, today I'm going to show you how to go about doing stranded crochet or intarsia crochet. And what that is normally when you would change colors, you could just crochet over the old color when you do the new color. But when you have long stretches, you can kind of see the previous yarn through the new color. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to be carrying the yarn around the back, and if we look at the back side of our yarn, of our work, you can see that we've got all these little carries. Now they don't go very long. You don't want them to go more than 3 or 4 stitches, and if you do have to go 3 or 4 stitches, then you're just going to trap the yarn like I did right over here. You can see this long strand here got trapped. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And I just got a simple graphic of the letter S. And what I did was I cast it on, I chained 16, and then I did 3 rows of single crochet that had 15 across. And then my pattern is the first 3 are always my background color, and then I work the chart for the S. So you'll see this is just the simple chart that I had, and it's a 15 stitch chart. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to first change the yarn and then how we are going to carry the yarn. So a note about the chart is we're going to start from the bottom. Okay, we start from the bottom and we're going to start reading from right to left, and then once we get back and we do the next row, we're going to read it from, since we're turning, we're going to read it from left to right. So row number 1 is going to be on this side, so this would be row number 1, and we would be going that way. And then number 2 would be here, and we read it this way. So you can mark up your chart, and you could do it any way you want. So that was 1, 3. So 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. Okay, and then you could do this side. Okay, so when you're working back and forth, remember that the first row you're going to start at the bottom and you're going to go from right to left. And then the next row you're going to turn your work so you're on the back of the work, and you're going to work from left to right. So that's how we're going to work our chart. So I have already done the first 3 rows that were just straight single crochet, 1 in each chain across, and we're going through both loops unless the pattern or specifically says that you only go through 1 loop. We're going to go underneath both loops for our chart. Okay, so I'm getting ready. I'm going to read row 4. So charts are pretty simple because you can count the boxes. So I have my 3 stitches on each side of the chart. So I'm going to do 3 stitches in the gray, and then I've just got 1 stitch in my contrasting color, and then 2 in my background color, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 in my contrast, and then the rest are all of my background color. So let's go ahead and do that, and we're going to chain 1 as we go up and turn. And I'm going to work the first 2 stitches like normal. Now when we're going to change the yarn, we're going to go in and pull up 1 loop so that there are 2 loops on the hook. And then with the new yarn, we're going to finish the stitch. So I'm going to grab my contrasting color, and I'm just going to grab it with the hook and bring it through. So then we're going to do 1. Now at the very beginning when I grab the colors, I like to just go over both of the colors to give it a little bit of an anchor. So I'm just going to crochet, but we're going to only do 1 stitch, so we're going back to our old color. So I like to bring the old color forward and grab the new color to finish the stitch. And then the stitches, they go to the back, okay? And then we're going to do 2. So we got 1 and 2. And now we're going to switch color again. So again, the old yarn comes to the front, and then the new yarn, I'm just going to make sure that it lays not super tight, but snugly against the back. And then I'm going to pull it through. You don't want it to be very tight because then it'll pucker your work. Okay, so the old color goes in the back, and then we're going to do 4. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Now I like to trap the yarn after every 3 stitches just so that I don't have a long strand on the back. So the way that I'm going to trap my yarn is, again, we stop in the middle of this stitch. You could put down your current work, and you're going to grab the other color, and you're just going to lay it between your needle, your hook, and the other yarn. And then you just pick up your yarn, and you're going to finish the stitch. So if you look, you'll see that your yarn got trapped in the middle of the stitch that you just did. Okay? And then we're going to do our last contrast. Again, I bring the yarn forward, and I'm going to finish my stitch. I'm going to bring the yarn to the back, and I'm going to finish the row. Okay, so we just did our very first row, and that's what it should look like. So now the reverse side gets a little tricky because normally you would have all of your floats and your strands on the back of your work, but since the back of our work is actually going to be the front once we turn, we can't do that. So I'll show you what we're going to do. So now we're going to chain 1, and I'm going to look to my chart again. So this was the row that we did. Now we're up to the next row. So we do our 3, and then right away we start 1, 2, 3 with our contrast. 3 background, 2 contrast, and then the rest of the row is going to be with our background color. So I'm going to go ahead and do my 3 for the border. Okay, and then I'm going to bring the yarn to the front, and now I'm going to grab the yarn, the red yarn, and finish my stitch. And again, I don't want this to be super tight because I don't want it to pull the work. And then when I work my first stitch, I'm just going to anchor this. Okay, and then the next one's 2 and 3. So again, yarn comes to the front, and then we're going to grab, so the old yarn now is actually behind the new yarn. And the reason why we do that is because once we grab it, it's now trapped. So we're going to do 3 again. And then old yarn goes forward, new yarn goes on top of the old yarn to finish the stitch. And then we do 2. So this one goes down, this one comes here, and then you're going to finish out the row. Always make sure that you have the same number of stitches each row. We're always going to have 15 for this little swatch, but you'll see now that our floats and our strands are on the back and our front is still clean. Okay, so I'll do one more row with you. So again, we're going to chain and we're going to turn. And if we look at our chart again, we're the third row in our chart. So we're on the right hand side again. So we're up to row 7. So it's going to be 3, and then you get 1, 2. Let's see, are we? Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go 1. Okay, now we're going to switch to the new color. And your yarn is going to get tangled with because we're twisting it back and forth. So at the end of the row, if you want to untangle your yarn, you can. I wait a couple rows until it's really tangled, and then I just untangle everything. So we're going to do 2. And again, new yarn goes, okay, bring the new yarn to the front. And then we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a long float again. So we're going to do 3 first. Stop in the middle of the third one. And now we want to trap our yarn again. So the contrasting color that we're not using, we're just going to bring towards the front. And then we're going to finish our stitch so that you can actually see how the yarn gets trapped in that stitch. Then yarn goes back to the back, and you're going to do the last 2 that you need to do with this color. And then yarn to the front, yarn to the back. We do 2. Okay, so that is, you're just going to keep continuing until you get your chart all finished, but the front of your work will look clean, and the back of your work will also look neat, but it will have these little floats. Okay, and at the end you're just going to weave in any extra tails that you have, and that is how to crochet with a stranded technique.